Good morning, everyone. My sermon is entitled Saved from Drowning, and just the very title kind of gives you a glimpse into what this is about. The scriptures that we're going to focus on can be found in Matthew 8, 23 through 27, and then again in Matthew 14, 22 through 32. These are two different stories, but I like to kind of pull them together because they have a common theme. We are on the outskirts of a pandemic right now. So there is so much emotional damage that has been done to so many people. So many people are struggling because of the pandemic and everything that relates to it. Their financial problems are causing emotional damage, loss of loved ones, loss of health, all kinds of things that sometimes make us feel like we're drowning. We feel like we're being sucked in, and sometimes it feels like the more we struggle, it's like quicksand, the deeper we get. And it gives us a feeling of being hopeless. There have been so many suicides and so much that has happened in the last couple of years. The statistics are frightening when you hear about it. But the point of this message is to show, first of all, that you're not alone. This is not something you're experiencing by yourself, because that's important to realize. And then second of all, there's hope. We don't have to drown. The drowning sensation comes from Satan and the waves that he throws at us. So the two stories that I wanted to talk about in Matthew, first of all, it shows how the people the closest to Jesus had their doubts. In the first one, Jesus he's been teaching all day. So, the disciples have been there watching him teach and heal and seeing all these miraculous things. And then they travel with him. They all get in a boat and they're traveling across the lake. Well, a storm brews. Well, Jesus is tired and obviously he has nothing to fear. So he goes to sleep and he's resting peacefully. Which is exactly what God wants us to do. He wants us to rest peacefully, knowing that he has control. But the disciples, even though they have just witnessed everything that has just happened, they become fearful. And they're like, God, save us. Help us. We can't do this. They're scared and they wake Jesus up. And Jesus tells them, ye of little faith, why are you afraid? And in that moment and in realizing that even these people closest to Jesus, after witnessing all that, had that moment of fear when the storms hit them. And there's such a wonderful parallel here that comes into our lives, because Satan is the storm. He's the waves. He's rocking the boat. He's making our lives feel like they're flipping upside down, and it's a roller coaster sometimes. But all we have to do, the moment the disciples called on Jesus for help, he calmed the storms. He calmed everything, and peace fell over the water. And that's what he wants to do for our lives. He wants peace to fall over our lives. In the second passage, in Matthew 14, it's a similar situation, only this time the disciples have gone across into the boat by themselves. Now, Jesus has been teaching and preaching all day. Again, he's tired and he takes his time because he wants to pray and renew himself. So the disciples went across, and when they look up, they see Jesus walking across the water. And it frightens them at first. They think he's a ghost. And Jesus calls out to him and he says, don't be afraid. It's just me. And so Peter says, well, if it's really you, because, they're going to test God. They're going to test Jesus. If it's really you, then I'll be able to walk to you on the water. And I can just imagine Jesus chuckling, and saying, okay, come on, And so Peter does. He actually steps out onto the water, and he is able to walk on water. God has the ability to give us miraculous capabilities when we trust in him. But there became a problem. the waves start going once again, just like Satan does in our lives, especially when we start doing good. Have you ever noticed that when you're really doing good, when you're focusing on God, when you're at church, when you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing, it seems like things will go wrong, or you feel Satan trying to knock you over. And that's exactly what happened here, because even though Peter is doing this miraculous thing, he starts looking at the waves. Instead of looking at Jesus, he starts looking at the waves. And in that moment, he loses faith and he starts to sink. How often do we take our eyes off of God for just a moment and we start sinking? But I'm here to tell you, you do not have to drown. You know, there's a popular meme going around that says, drowning is not falling into the water. Drowning is staying in the water. So when we take our eyes off of God and we allow the waves to knock us over or cause us to even sink, all we have to do is call out. So Peter calls out to Jesus and Jesus rescues him, as always, as he does for us today. This reminds me of a story when I was younger. I went on a beach trip with my family, you know, and we're so excited as kids to get out into the water. Now, as an adult, I'm not quite so excited, but we were, and I could see people out there on their little floats, and they're going with the waves and they're having fun. Well, this looks like a great time to me, right? So my family stays on the beach, and I'm just going right there, directly in front of my family. I can see them. And I'm just going with the waves. I mean, this is good stuff. And then I thought, this feels so good. I'm just going to kind of lay my head down for a minute. So I took my eyes off of my family and I laid my head down on the float. It seemed like seconds. But all of a sudden I looked up and I don't see anything that I recognize. I can't see my family. I can't see the tent on the beach. The buildings look different. I have no idea where I am. And in that moment, fear hits me like a ton of bricks. And I realized that the waves had pushed me down the shore. The same principle of the entire message. The moment we take our eyes off of what's important, that's when Satan attacks. That's when Satan is able to push us away. You know, throughout history, in the scriptures, there are so many instances where people were afraid and God came through for them. God is faithful to his word and his promises to help us, to save us. And literally all we have to do is call on him. It's so simple, yet so difficult. And the point of this message is to let you know that you're not alone. This happened with Abraham, with Moses, with Jacob, with Joshua, all the great men in the Bible, all the great leaders in the Bible had those moments of doubt where they had to call on God for help. They were scared. We can't rely on our human strength to navigate the waves that Satan is throwing at us. We can't always keep swimming. We will get tired. We will sink. But God just scoops us right up. He just scoops us right up like it's nothing. And all we have to do is call on him. We have to trust on him, and we have to keep our eyes on him. And that's the importance of spiritual disciplines. Reading our Bible, staying in our word, having a relationship with God. That's our life jacket. That's what keeps us afloat in the storms. The storms are going to come, but you do not have to drown. Are you ready to stay afloat? Are you ready to walk on water? Can you put your faith in God and keep your eyes on him? That is the ticket, and that is how we stay afloat and we keep from drowning in the world that we live in. Thank you guys for listening, and may God bless each and every one of you.